Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Sunday Night Breakdown. Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester here to go through almost everything in the British Basketball League this week. Full disclosure, people, I didn't realise I was doing the game today. I'm doing Cheshire against Sheffield later. So we decided that we're going to just go through everything else and just leave that one. Nothing
Yeah,
riding on it. Doesn't really matter.
yeah, and I gave up. I mean, the fact I've been up till 6 o'clock, obviously, in the club,
Yeah,
partying
yeah.
and dealing with all my techno music issues. I thought I'd still get up early and do my best for
For
the
the
three of you
people.
guys who are watching loyally, um, or listening. Yeah, they really wasn't great. So
Yeah, so let's first of all, London Lions 80, Joventut Badalona 82. That was a big loss. I've only seen the final play. I haven't seen the whole game, but that was a big loss for London, given that Hapoel were playing Paris that day and lost.
yeah,
And they're three rounds left. They're a win behind Hapoel Tel Aviv, and Hapoel Tel Aviv have the head-to-head. So really unlikely that they're going to be in the top two. Uh,
mm,
which the benefit of being in the top two means you don't play in the eighth final. You
first
go
round.
straight to the quarterfinals, and also you'll be at home.
Yeah, I mean, did watch quite a lot of this, not all of it, but certainly a lot of it. I'm kind of skipping around. Um, they didn't really have any excuse, London. They came out very slowly, not so much in the way they were playing, but they missed shots early. And Badalona went up, I think, 12, 13 points in the first quarter, quite early, like, 17-4, something like that, 20-7. And Conor Morgan had a couple of open threes early, which you expect to go down, didn't go down. And they haven't quite this year played with the same vigor on the at home that they have on the road in
Mm,
Europe. They haven't had that same certainty about them. And then it was kind of, can you catch up? And London actually never got in the lead in the whole game, which is remarkable for a 2-point game.
mm,
They never got to the point where they got over the top. They were always chasing it. It was interesting, primarily looking at them going forwards because they've got Nwaba now, who they're integrating. And how do you integrate him? Is he a two? Is he a three? Could he even be a four in the BBL? Um, and in this game, for the first time, 3.5 minutes to go, it's like a 4-point game, something like that. It's a tight game. Bozic takes Matt Morgan out, who's been playing very well. I think he's just giving him a blow for a minute. And he runs this lineup of Tariq Phillip, David Nwaba, Grantham, Conor Morgan, or Shenny, or Sharma, whoever. So a really big lineup, Grantham at the
mm,
three, Nwaba at the two. And he ran that all the way down to like the last possession. And that kind of intrigued me because, I can't com comprehend a universe where Matt Morgan's not in the game with 3 minutes to go in a close game. It's a bit of a stretch. He wasn't in foul trouble. He was able to. If it's any consolation, European teams are just as dumb as British teams in giving up Matt Morgan 60 feet layup passes immediately
mm.
after foul shots.
Yeah.
Badalona, they did that to Badalona as well.
Mm,
At a crucial time when Badalona had just gone up 7 in the fourth quarter with 5 minutes to go. Um, and he came out and they went with Nwaba there. So against that background, it's kind of understandable that maybe you wouldn't win that game because he's only been there 3 games.
mm,
But you've got to get him those reps because he's going to be a big player for you. But getting him those reps whilst you're in the middle of high pressure games isn't easy.
mm,
Um, and I think ultimately they probably paid for it. It might not be in the possession side of it, but just in the way that they were kind of matched up with each other. It's always difficult to win when you're new.
mm,
Always difficult. And Tomic played well for Badalona. He kind of became impactful in the fourth quarter. And ultimately, the guy that made the floater, decent defense from Grantham at the end.
mm,
He just missed a foul shot to put the game away. But he sets him up going left just so he can get half that step going right and shoot made to float. That's a great play.
mm. And the worrying thing now is that actually puts Juventud on 10-5, so the same record as London and Besiktas, who come to London next week. I was doing their game; they won, so they're 9 and 6. London won by 3 in Istanbul, so they can afford a 4-point loss, or they'll lose the can't afford a 4-point loss in
No.
regulation time, or
Yeah.
they'll lose the head-to-head. Points in overtime don't count. So if it goes to overtime, London win the head-to-head.
Hallelujah. You know how long I've been saying that?
Yeah.
You know how long? I mean, my view was always overtime games should be recorded as a 1-point win. I mean, obviously, if it's equal points, fair enough. But you should never have a situation where you can extend the points difference in overtime.
Yeah, it's been like that in Eurocup, Euroleague for a number of years now, where
Yeah, because
basically it's a
they
zero.
actually
It
they're
counts
actually
as zero.
they're actually proactively looking at things that could go hideously wrong and preventing them from happening.
Yeah, I'm assuming at some point, 10 years ago, somebody did that and they went, "We're not having that again." Well, but the worry about that is if they were to lose to Besiktas,
Yeah.
and they were to lose by more than 4 and lose the head to head, then there's a potential they could drop all the way to 5th. And obviously, 5th not only means you play the 8th final, but it means you play it on the road, because the higher placed in the regular season gets the home advantage all the way through the playoffs.
Where, of course, they've been better.
Well, they've been better, so maybe it would help. Maybe they should deliberately lose and play everything on the road.
I'd be surprised.
Yeah. But it should be interesting because the Besiktas, I saw they were
Big
saying that
crowd.
Besiktas fans, they sold about 2,000 tickets. There was a lot of them in Hamburg last week. I did Hamburg against Besiktas last week, and there was a lot of Besiktas fans in, obviously, a big Turkish community in Germany as well, but there was a lot of them there, and they were loud, and they were jumping up and down, and they were doing all the things you expect from a team like that. So big game for them. Big game for them on, is it Wednesday night? I think it's Wednesday. Right, let's go to the trophy action. Thursday night, Caledonia Gladiators 99, Surrey Scorchers 74. Surrey without Jameson, so obviously no centres with Hunt out. No Gooden as well, so they had Teo and Dengby starting. DeBose was back for Caledonia, but coming off the bench, and Johnny Bunyan was there, but then it turns out it was his last game. He's going back to Falkirk.
Yeah, a bit weird. Not weird insofar as that no doubt Johnny wants to play. So I imagine, there's an athlete you want to play, so if you're not playing, it's just all been a bit unusual with that this year because obviously they had 13 players, but no one ever really I mean if there was an announcement about whether Johnny was going to be playing or not playing, I didn't hear it, I didn't see it.
No.
So in the times they've had injuries, he's still not come off the bench. And they signed a guy, Joventut, who, to be frank, probably wasn't as ready to play in the British Basketball League as Johnny was even now. And then kind of halfway through the season, you have kind of a farewell game, all a bit, sadly,
On a Thursday night in a trophy
on a Thursday
game.
night in front of not virtually no one, but not a great crowd. So I gather they're having a testimonial at the end of the season,
Yeah.
which is good. I'm available for a small fee for that. Johnny. I know that with it being Scotsman, obviously there's no chance even a small fee paid. But no, I mean, it's been a bit of just a bit off this year. I think a bit unfortunate. But a hell of a career.
Yeah.
To be in the league as long as he has and to be impactful as long as he has with 40+% 3-point shooting. Basically Scottish Ian McKinney, basically.
Yeah.
Which for those who know is actually high praise.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Google it. And to be there basically every game and he very rarely injured. Always knew what you were going to get out of him and played in some good teams and played impactful minutes in some really good teams. And always
327 appearances. He's second all time behind Gareth in terms of appearances for Caledonia. Or games played rather than
games played.
appearances.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's very good. And a lot of tenacity because one thing for Gareth. I mean, Gareth at 6'7", Gareth could dunk.
Yeah.
Gareth could jump. Gareth. Yeah, Johnny's 5'11", maybe 5'10".
Yeah.
Probably slightly less.
And I would imagine every American guard who ever saw him come on court thought, "I'm going to have him now. This is my time to shine." So they went at him be
Yeah,
fair.
we told our guys to, bless them. You go out and make them, you know, make them, you know. But then that builds metal, you know,
It
that builds
does, yeah, yeah.
that builds the. You either, you know, there's been multiple young kids who've been in the league for a year or 2 years. Everybody says, "Oh, he's got a chance, he's good." But ultimately, the grind of being good at going at, because you're the weak link, going at
Mm,
you're perceived as a weak link, going when you're young, going at them day after day after day after
mm,
day, um, game after game after game. In the practice, people are going at you game after game. All the new Americans coming in going at you,
mm,
and have kind of the mentality to beat that,
mm,
you know, and to fight through that, and to get to that point whereby actually they're not going at you anymore.
mm.
That's a big thing, because that's where the vast majority of professional careers founder.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You know, it's young. We always go, why haven't we got enough young British
Well,
guys?
you
And
think,
because
you
they don't
think,
stick it out. They
yeah,
can't.
yeah.
Ultimately, they've got, you know, they've got to be productive at some point.
You think about it. How many smallish point guards have there been British that have lasted that long? You think of Connor, you think of Johnny. There aren't many, are there? Really?
Well, certainly not in this era,
Mm,
um, because it was always a mentality of, you know, you find an American guard,
mm.
and that's primarily because one good British guards were particularly before Brexit, were offered to Europe, getting paid a lot of money,
Yeah,
which we
true,
couldn't
true.
afford. You
Yeah.
know, so, you know, we got Justin at the end of his
Mm,
career, not the very end, but he came back when he was 32, 33,
mm,
you know, maybe 31, you know, because for family reasons, you know, we didn't get him when he was 26, 27. Andrew Lawrence the same.
mm,
Um, you know, and so part of that is that you know, the absolute, you know, the guys who've gone to USA colleges and scored 18 a game in US colleges,
mm,
aren't Division 1 colleges, weren't playing the substantial parts of their career in the UK. But then, because the people who are coming through the British system, you know, they're having to compete to prove themselves.
mm,
Honor had to compete to prove themselves. Didn't play for 2 years, or hardly played for 2 years. You know, Johnny was the same. Johnny was, you know, when
mm.
Johnny start, it was probably his first or second season. They had an American British kid called Alex Marcatolio
Yeah.
out of maybe Notre Dame, somewhere like that, or no, it was somewhere. It was a pretty good American college. It may not be now, I can't remember. A pretty good American college, American British guy. You know, and you look at your resumes and you say that, you know, what's his name? Alex Marcatoli is going to be around for a lot longer than Johnny Bunyan, the same
Mm,
size, could shoot the ball. Um, but he lasted a year and a half. I think he might have got picked for GB. He lasted a year and a half. He got picked for GB on the basis of his college resume, but wasn't there. You know, we had Richard Midgley at Newcastle, 2007, 2008. He decided that you know, professional basketball wasn't for him. Played a couple of years at Everton, decided he'd go and live in California. Good for him. You know,
Northwestern, he went to.
Northwestern. Sorry, I meant, you know, over. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, yeah. Um, so it was Big Ten college. That's right.
Mm,
And yeah, so Midgley, who was another high level British guard, didn't stick it out because he decided he had better things to do than play basketball, which is fine. That's his life, you
mm,
know.
mm,
Um, and you know, to do it for 12 years, particularly as a point guard,
mm,
is, or 12, 13 years, 320 games as a point guard, um, means that you've maximized every skill that you had.
mm,
And every skill that he had was basically, Johnny's skills were basically getting the ball over half court, passing it to who he needed to, and knocking down an open shot.
mm,
You know, and it's a great thing for players, you know, for all these British guards coming up. You don't have to be 6'2". You don't have to be able to jump a mile. You know, you just got to be, you're solid, you're disciplined, and you can shoot. Most
mm,
importantly, you can shoot. Because if Johnny was a 32% 3-point shooter, he wouldn't be it wouldn't have been in the British Basketball League. And you can shoot, and you work on that day after day after day, and you got a bit of ticker. Well, you're gonna make it. And I hope that he goes and burns everybody in
mm.
Scotland for
Yeah,
30
yeah,
every
yeah,
game. Um, I am a little bit surprised they can't use him. I
yeah,
don't know if
yeah,
his health,
yeah.
his physical health has dropped off a little bit, whereby it's harder for him to keep up or whatever. I don't know. But I'm a great believer, and I'm watching it. Obviously, I'm kind of, my history is biased towards older players, because
Mm,
generally you win stuff with brains as opposed to brawn.
mm,
You know, and I'm obviously watching Defoe at the moment at 39. With the guys we had, Charles was MVP at 39. It wasn't because they could run faster or jump higher.
No.
It's because of what they had in here. So I think we do value athleticism a little bit more than game smart at times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And fans do in particular. Everyone's always, it's like every sport, everyone's always looking to pension somebody off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Jimmy
Yeah.
Anderson's still bowling fast for England. He's 41-year-old. Why? Because he's better than everybody else. Why? Because he's got 20 years of knowledge. His body is used to it. It's what he
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why do we stop? Why would you not use him? Well, you can still do it. Um, so yeah, great job,
Yeah,
Johnny.
yeah, I'm with you. I'm
The
a little
post.
surprised they couldn't find him a few minutes this year, but it is what it is, and he'll long be remembered in
And
rock
if there's any
slash gladiators
consolation, clearly,
background.
clearly Surrey were in on it as well because they got themselves a nice little cheap technical foul at the end of the third quarter.
Yeah,
They still
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
score
yeah.
a point.
The
Yeah,
funny thing is, because I was driving back from whatever game I was doing a EuroLeague game on Thursday night, so I was listening to it, and I obviously heard that, but I watched it back yesterday, and actually noticed that Gareth from the sideline shouted,
yeah,
"Johnny, take it!"
yeah, exactly. It was a bit like you're in the nines football, wasn't it? Where
Yeah.
the kid who hasn't scored a goal all season gets to take the penalty.
Mm. But he made
Um,
it. That was the
he
important
made
thing. He
it,
missed it.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, but look, there's a lot of water under the bridge. There's a lot with Johnny in that franchise. I'm quite sure. I'm not suggesting that they've done him wrong or anything like that.
Mm.
I don't know what the story is. I don't know what's
Yeah.
going on. It may well be that this is kind of being managed in a certain way that
Mm.
everybody's content with.
Mm.
So I don't want this to be sounding like a kind of a bashing of Gareth or the Glads because I don't know,
Mm.
and I don't think it probably is. I think they've all they're all yeah, blokes, they're all mending, all sorted out the
Yeah,
way they
yeah.
want to do it.
Well,
And this is the way they want to do it.
hopefully they sell out his testimonial, and it's a good day.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the game. Police 30 back-to-back threes and a 13-0 run to 17-5. And to be honest with you, that was just about it. Sorry, didn't have enough horses to make a comeback, really.
Yeah. Um, this is the difficulty with Surrey was this was always before the Lord Mayor's show because everything was going to be on the game on Saturday anyway. And then it's in Caledonia, so it was a long trip. And then Jameson's not there. And it's the worst team in the league to play against without size because they've got size at every position and they're
Mm.
playing through Ali Hodzic in the post. So they're going to really just batter you down. And Dubose coming back gives them a nice little kick off the bench. Also, Bothwell's starting, so he's kind of a little bit more comfortable that the coach believes in him. And obviously, and they really haven't got anybody on the wing to guard Politzer and his shooting. So they never look competitive in this game. It's tough because you can make threes and you can make threes at home. You can score lots of points. You can try and ride a wave of kind of we're feeling good about ourselves, but eventually you need the bodies, and those bodies have to be a certain size. And on the road, you have to be able to physically kind of compete and challenge. And it's a little bit early for Okasimi and Bailey. If Lloyd had been told at the beginning of the season, right, you've got two must-win games, and the first one you're going to have these two guys playing your centre spot.
Mm.
You'd have probably thought,
Mm.
it's a bit early for them. They're both guys who have demonstrated they can play, but they're 8, 9, 10, 11 minutes a game level.
Mm.
At this point, you get out of them what you can, and then because they're going to be in foul trouble. And then Gooden's hurt as well, and Gooden's been he's not been massively involved in this season for them, but he's a point of difference for them. And without that point of difference, a lot falls onto Robinson and Lawrence to create shots, and eventually against that Caledonia team who was built to kind of be methodical, shut you down. The way you beat them is by you hold them in the 70s and you score 80, and they were never going to hold them in the 70s.
Mm. They did briefly get it to sort of 6 or 7 in the third quarter. It never quite looked sustainable. Paliza 20.6 rebounds, Johnson 19 points, 5 rebounds, Bothwell 14 points. It was 53-36 on the rebounding, just to emphasize the size thing. It was 17 offensive rebounds to 29 defensive rebounds. So they had, what's that, a third or something of the missed shots. They got second chance points, and they got 18 second chance points. Robinson 16, Ogundengi 14, Steele 11.
Just on this one
Yeah.
though, shout out for for Brett on commentary doing his first commentary game, Brett Berman. A particular shout out for Brett because he absolutely nailed the next game.
I've
But
actually
the
got
next
that written
game,
down in the next game. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But to be
Absolutely.
fair,
Looked like an absolute genius because I was
well,
doing the commentary of the other game and I had we had a quarter break and I put up the stats and I saw Kimball McKenzie 20 points, 8 of 8 shooting, 7 assists. And I actually said it on commentary. Brett Berman is a genius here. He's absolutely
well,
nailed
I
it.
mean, I think it's a fairly. I think it's. I don't think it's a difficult take, but he said
Mm.
it and he absolutely nailed it because he
Yeah,
was
yeah,
spot on. But I thought he was spot on when he said it.
yeah,
To be
yeah,
honest, so it wasn't not a question of after the event.
yeah,
Um, yeah, he talked about who's going to be. Josh was saying Teddy Allen's going to drop 30, and
yeah,
he basically said the team runs on Kimball McKenzie,
yeah.
and yeah, we're going to get to that.
Yeah, we will get to that. First of all, we'll divert via Bristol Flyers 94, London Lions 72. Bristol had no Smith, no Thomas Edwards, and obviously Graham Bell. London rested everybody except Nelson Grantham. Sholawadi was back for a few minutes and looked all right. Bristol in the first half, for no obvious reason, were just jacking threes despite their substantial size advantage. They ended 3 of 17 at halftime. Landolfi had hit 2 of them. He had his best offensive game, actually, Alan Dolphy. The third quarter, they turned up a bit of defense. They forced some turnovers. They got runouts. They won the quarter 35-12, and that was basically that. And I said, you didn't have to watch this one back, Dave.
You
But
did. I asked you. I looked at the stats and I thought to myself, oh, this is going to be a tough watch. Well, look, London. To be fair, London have earned. I mean, London have earned the right to do that, and particularly in a game where there's nothing on it.
mm,
Now, if Bristol had to win that basketball game by 20 to qualify the three-way tie,
mm,
they would currently be, the social media would currently be on fire.
yeah, yeah.
But I can't. You can't raise any issues if they had enormous amount of games. But even if they hadn't played enormous amount of games, you've qualified,
Mm,
and the other team hasn't qualified. Then short of the fact, and the Bristol fans will be happy because they saw their team win. Albeit, I think I would probably prefer to watch those other guys play, but nevertheless. So yeah,
mm.
they're the games when you get
And it's
your
useful
guys
for them
minutes.
because Bradley had 19, and obviously he's a new signing, so they're integrating him. Ollison
He's
17,
a
Jacobs
potential
16.
all-star, Levi
Yeah,
Bradley.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Cabot,
Did you not see the All-Star voting release?
what is he in the? Is he in the thing?
He's
Yeah,
currently ranked third in forwards for the West for the South at
there you
17% of
go. Yeah,
votes.
yeah.
He's
Missed
got a
that
lot
one.
of He's got a lot of American relatives.
Yeah, yeah,
He's only played one game or two
yeah.
games. Yeah, there needs to be some jiggery pokery done with that, I think, because
No, there doesn't. No, it doesn't
it really
matter. Is
does.
it all? It doesn't
You
matter.
can't. You can't be voting people who haven't played a game.
Yeah, it
I've
doesn't
played three
matter.
games into the All-Star game. I
Doesn't
mean, come
matter.
on. There
Doesn't
needs to be
matter.
minimum requirements or something like that.
No, that doesn't matter.
It wasn't just he doesn't agree, does he?
Well, I
Who
don't
was it?
care. Put Teddy Allen in if you want Levi
Oh,
Bradley in.
he's going to be in.
Put
He's got half the
Levi.
votes.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
already in. I don't, he's played 9 games. I can just about get by with that. But Levi Bradley and Mike Bothwell, I'm struggling.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
If people vote for them, I ain't got a problem. It's
Oh, okay.
democracy,
Right.
mate. It's
Well,
democracy. Vote for who you
democracy.
want to.
Yeah.
If you want to vote for Screaming Lord Such, you do that.
I don't think he's
Uh,
on the list, sadly. And Patrick Whelan's listed as a forward. That's not good.
no,
But
no.
apart from that, I'm fine with it. As you tell, I'm not at all hot under the collar about this
Yeah.
ridiculous charade.
Caboza 18.6 rebounds, Nelson 13, Queeley 11. So let's go to the main order of Friday night. Newcastle Eagles 85, Leicester Riders 101. Eagles obviously still with only their six frontline players.
Yeah, they managed to get Sam Mamouni, who hasn't played, he's played about 3 minutes all season. He managed to get injured as well, so he wasn't even signed up. That's 7 guys. Even the guy who never plays was injured. Great.
They scored the first 7 points of the game, although slightly ominous when Mackenzie hits the three in the corner. It was waved off for stepping on the line, but a sign of things to come, I think. And the other thing that probably didn't help Newcastle was they got Walker on 2 fouls after 3 minutes and brought Adowu in.
Yeah, I think that was maybe a fortunate opportunity for Rob because, to be fair, Walker had knocked down a three, but he was also going to struggle to stay in front of anybody. Any of the Newcastle guards in the screen row, they were attacking him. Firstly, I quite enjoyed this game, even though Eagles weren't that close in it. It had the atmosphere and the environment of a proper game. And that was not because the crowd's the same as always, 1,000 fans, 2,000 people coming in to say, oh, how many fouls people get. And all other stuff going on. But because the team, we have this ubiquitous cliche of everybody's locked in, everybody's half an hour before the game, you've got a picture of some basketball player on the court, dancing with their headphones on and their court models locked in, It's like, no, they're not. They're just people doing their job. From now on, I have a definition. My definition of locked in is if you're not what Kimball McKenzie was in this game, you're not locked in, right? Because ultimately, and there's a lot of reasons why he was ready for this game, primarily because he's been around the league a little bit. He knows what Birmingham's about. He got beat by London in the final last year. So there's all those things going on in Birmingham. So, and because they know that they've got another two months of pretty jeopardy-free basketball after this, and players don't really like that. Players want to be on a big stage. And so, as the leader of that team, which is what he unquestionably is, but also as someone with a background in things that have gone before, hinterland in it, he was aware of what that game meant. Newcastle were playing with house money because there were six of them, and and to be fair, Defoe had been thrown up all week, and was actually subbed in the third quarter to go and throw up into a bucket on the sideline. Some of the fans' testimonies on Facebook who sit behind that side say that they didn't want to get too close. They saw it, but they didn't want to get too close. So they were really playing with house money. They weren't, the expectation wasn't on them to win. They were just going to see how far they could ride it, and they came out full of bounce. And they were 7-0 up before Leicester had attempted a legal shot. The problem was that when Leicester did attempt a legal shot after that, they didn't really miss many. Now, the biggest thing though was Kimball, because the 7-0 after 90 seconds, they come out and Ricky McGill falls over at half court trying to guard him, which weren't great. And rather than having any kind of lack of clarity in his mind, McKenzie just steps up the 3-point line, bang. Right, you fall over, I'm going to shoot the ball. Nobody else recovered to get to him. No one. Eagles weren't obviously expecting that. There was no.
I think even if they'd recovered, they wouldn't have got to him on the 3-point line.
Maybe, but
they'd have tried to take the lane away, but
it might have made him change his decision. But the point being, they weren't expecting it, and at that point, you don't know who on the other team is ready to play and who's not, right? And then he made a shot the next play. But then what happened was Newcastle tried to go basket with Leicester, but Newcastle's floor balance in the first quarter was off. And what I mean by that, floor balance is an offensive thing. Depends on basically where are your guys when the shot goes up, because as well as everybody loves it when you get offensive rebounds and you score, but it's never great when you don't get an offensive rebound and suddenly you look up and it's 3v1 the other way. And because of the lineup that Newcastle were kind of forced to play, where they have Austin, who's primarily playing off the ball, he's crashing the offensive glass more often than not. Taj Green is incessantly crashing the offensive glass. Darius is likely to be somewhere inside the 3-point line at the time a shot goes up, and that leaves McGill and Johnson. One of them is a guy who penetrating or has got the ball in their hands. So if you don't get the rebound, you can be often left with one guy back. And Leicester are a really dynamic transition team because they are very athletic. Thomas, Holmes, Allen, and obviously McKenzie can all push the ball when Adobo comes in as well. They move the ball well, and they killed Newcastle in transition in the first quarter. That was the game. And ultimately, that was the game.
There was a 19
they made some shots.
Yeah, there was a 19-5. Yeah, there was a 19-5 run in 4 minutes to 20-31, and I've got down Eagles' transition D wasn't great. Riders out and running, scored 37 points in a quarter.
Yeah, well, 37 points, 8.5 minutes, because they didn't score in the first minute and a half.
Yeah. Or if Kimball's feet were a bit smaller, they'd have had 40 points in the quarter.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. And yeah, I just thought Newcastle were just a little bit little bit higher on the house money side. They played with a little bit of a lack of. Um, it's hard because it's tough because they're outmatched in lots of positions size wise. But they needed to play the perfect game discipline wise, and they didn't quite do that in the way that they gave up transition and getting the shots that they took offensively. They kind of relied a lot on the individualism of some of that of Johnson and McGill, and then Austin getting off in transition. And so, it's tough. That in the when they've been playing with Whitfield or Ward Hibbert, those guys know what their role is. They don't crash as much. They get back. The balance is there. And when you play with those three guards in such a way that it isn't necessarily, and against Bristol, maybe you can get away with that. Against other teams, you can get away with that. Against that Leicester team, very difficult because they're very good with the basketball in their hands going in transition. So, the interesting subplot for the season was kind of Alan and Austin, because Leicester actually better when Alan wasn't on the court in this game, in my view, from what I could see. He didn't play that many, he played for maybe 25 minutes because the ball moved more, it popped more. And the times that they struggled a little bit when the ball slowed down, it generally stuck a little bit in Alan's hands. And the reason it's stuck in Alan's hands is because he's been guarded by a little guy who was bothering him, as opposed to a big guy who he could kind of have a little bit of space to operate and shoot a step back three and get and get him on his heels. So that meant that in order to make him move, he had to, drive, penetrate, dribble, spin, whatever, which took a little bit more than it would normally be when he would normally look to just get off his 3-point shot, because he's been a devastating 3-point shooter so far in the league. And there were a couple of times he lost the ball. There was once Defoe came up on him on the backside and took it off and then got a layup.
I had flashbacks of Run Billy Run. Remember the 2001 player final where Billy Singleton was out in the fast break trying to run back a layup.
I think even that, I think that's a little bit harsh on Darius.
No, not physique, just the fact that he looked knackered doing it.
I
After the free throw, he was there blowing, and then it was like, I think he's going to do his shoelaces in a minute.
Yeah, I was just watching each hamstring every stride. And they don't need another one. Slow down, Billy, slow down. But it kind of came because Alan was a little bit more individualistic within the group, and they were really pushing up on him, and they weren't giving him his get out shot, which was his 3-point shot. He didn't get a 3-point shot. And then he got a couple of fouls as well, which took him out of the game as well. So it's kind of an interesting precursor as to ways of defending him for the rest of the season, because he's going to score points every game. And he made it, he got a couple of offensive rebounds on Austin. He got down the post a couple of times and scored. So there is a way around it. But in doing that, that kind of takes him and takes them a little bit out of what they'd been doing with him at the top of the key. So we'll see whether more teams kind of go with that strategy of defending him with a little guy, or whether they kind of stick with a bigger guy. But Newcastle went to a zone, and that kind of frustrated Leicester a little bit. They were never going to make as many shots in the second quarter as they did in the first.
Before you get to the second quarter, I've got quarter scores going back to 2009. 37 is the most Newcastle have conceded at home in that time. Previously 36 against Lions, and in 2022, Leicester's best in Newcastle was 30.
I'm surprised at that, because there's been a few games where it's
I was a little surprised.
But this is the thing. See, Leicester. This is the thing with it being a big game. Leicester were playing for a final or for a semi-final, and so there was no. At any given time in the British Basketball League season, you have two teams at slightly different levels of motivation, which will generally always be slightly below 100%. They'll be going up or they'll be going down, or they'll be in their feelings about something or other. They might be on the rise, they might be on the drop. We talk about it all the time. This is a one-off game, so it doesn't count.
It was essentially a quarter-final, wasn't it?
It was a quarter-final, yeah, which is what we're missing. We've been missing all this season, all the cup games, which really kind of used to spice up all those league games where everyone was, okay. So Newcastle were never going to be able to rely on Leicester not being entirely there. They were always going to be entirely there. Whereas when they'd been at Bristol had been missing a few players. They'd come off a European game, and they'd won at Bristol with a 6-man rotation. Manchester hadn't been locked in at all, hadn't been focused at all. So the Newcastle were playing a team at a different level in forms of kind of mental aptitude and application to the game. And that they were really, and that was really impactful, because Adobo came in, made shots. Holmes was making shots. They were getting out in transition. They were running. They were focused on the defense. And they were clearly prepared, had the whole week to prepare for the game, and they were clearly ready for Newcastle 6 players. But the zone kind of stymied them a little bit, and slowed the game down a bit, which Newcastle desperately needed to do, which is tough because they're a very fast team, but they needed to slow that game down. And then John Johnson had one of his little kind of second quarter explosions, and suddenly it's a 6-point game, and you're wondering how, to be honest.
Yeah. But there was quite a bit of trading scores as well. So once they got it to 6, it just sort of bounced between.
Well,
six
once
and
it got, the second quarter, I think Leicester scored 14 points or 16 points, something like that. And that was the way it had to be the rest of the way. And it wasn't, because Leicester broke out some threes. And the guys that broke out the threes were the Mackenzie, who, whenever they needed a bucket, was able to get to wherever he wanted to go and make the shot whenever he needed to. Definition of a guy who was totally in control of the game, basically. Lol, who steps up and makes key plays and key shots when they need him. And then that kind of extra athleticism and shooting they got some shooting from Adobo as well. And then and some energy and some rebounding and kind of play around the rim from Shelton. So Newcastle kept kind of scoring with them, but every time they got a chance to get close, they missed a couple of foul shots. And it was one of those games whereby if they didn't get over the hump in the third quarter and make it into a dogfight, they were never going to survive in it. And Leicester broke them at the end of the third quarter, and then Newcastle lost the discipline at the end of the fourth quarter. And that was it.
So Mackenzie had 5 in a row in a 9-0 run to 61-74. And then, as you say, Johnson fouled out, I think it was 4 minutes into the fourth quarter.
It wasn't just that. I mean, Johnson fouled out,
but
it wasn't just Johnson fouling out. There was, I think, they committed probably 6 fouls in the first 4 minutes of the fourth quarter. They were in the penalty early, and they were all bad fouls. They were all kind of frustration fouls. It was almost like they kind of figured out in their own head. They were trying to rage against the light of the inevitable. But when you're in a game like that, a game with proper consequences, and we were on the other side of it, you were always looking for the point whereby you broke the other team's will. And breaking will doesn't just mean they give up. It just means that their mental focus kind of reduces to the point whereby they start making mistakes and start doing things they wouldn't do. Maybe the coach puts in a couple of guys, changes his rotation, and that's the point you've got them. And that was the beginning of the fourth quarter. In this game, Newcastle had the chance of making maybe one run and making it interesting, but they didn't make a couple of shots. Then defensively, they shot a couple of bad 3-point shots, kind of tired-looking shots early in the offense, and Holmes or Law got across and blocked them. Then they committed fouls at the other end, or they gave up in transition, and that was the game. So credit to Leicester. The Leicester vibe's interesting at the moment. They didn't strike me as Alan was an interesting kind of watched on the bench in the fourth quarter. You guys wouldn't have seen it on the TV, but he was a bit antsy on the bench. He was he did that American thing of walking to the halfway line to try and sub in and that type of stuff. And Rob saying you got to sit down and all this stuff. They've got a lot of talent. I think it's going to be a job to manage them. Not in the next week or two, but I think in the next 2 or 3 months, it's going to be a job to keep them all going. I think the Mackenzie and even Walker to a certain degree, and Rob and Pablo are going to be the key to that, because they've still got a lot of young.
Well, there was a great one at the end when Alan had fouled out and he wasn't happy, and I'll just touch on that in a minute. But he was punching the chair next to him in frustration. And Rob was standing in front of him, presumably to block any view from the referee. And then Pablo moved over a seat to sit on the one he was punching as well.
Yeah, I did see that. It actually slipped my mind, but that's what I meant. He was just antsy on the bench. There was a little bit before that as well. You could see he was, you can see when a player's kind of, and the reality was he didn't know what that game was. He wasn't ready. He hadn't seen anybody defend him the way that Austin defended him. Austin's a pretty pesky defender when he wants to be anyway. But very rarely, and is he going to be guarded by somebody who's 6'1"? So it's new to him. Then on top of that, he really doesn't know what Birmingham is. He's been there. He's never seen it. Players don't know until they've seen it. So someone like Mackenzie. So he kind of got a little bit blindsided by that game, I thought. He still scored 14 points. He's still clearly a mega talented scorer. But this is how you can impact individuals depending upon what their understanding of everything is.
Mm.
And so I thought that was a really interesting subplot in the game, because it's the first time that I certainly, obviously, the first time we see someone live is always interesting anyway,
Mm.
because you get to pick up on all the peccadillos and the body language, etc. And then seeing them live when they're basically experiencing a bit of adversity for the first time. If you take out that London game, where they just got beaten, you 6-25, but that's London, so that's what's expected. This is kind of another British Basketball League team. They've only got 6 players. We should be stomping all over them, and it wasn't easy for him.
Mm.
So how he responds, he's gonna have to learn as a pro. You got to respond to adversity, and you can't be banging chairs when your team is winning by 20 with 3 minutes to go in a game to get to a semi-final.
Mm.
That's the time you've got to be walking off, because a coach sees that. A coach is going to think, man, this guy's more in his own head than he is in his team's head.
Mm.
So they're the
Look,
little things they're the little things you've got to get better at.
just
And
pick up on the foul which caused his ire.
well, what I'll say is that and this is literally an Arsene Wenger thing. It's
Yeah,
right at the other far end of the
yeah,
arena
yeah.
for me. So
So
I know the ball was in the air,
yeah,
and the cordon, and then the cordon unsportsmanlike, and
unsportsmanlike.
Del Pesh was
So
jumping. So I couldn't see.
so somebody who
I
I
didn't
won't
care really.
name.
I didn't care.
I've just finished my game. I've walked out. I'm watching it in the office, and somebody I won't name says to me, "That's never an unsportsmanlike foul." But I hadn't quite seen it,
Right.
and somebody else texts me and say that's never an unsportsmanlike foul. So I've obviously watched it back, and I agree because he's up in the air. He's chasing it for a block, and
Yeah.
the referee said he's pushed him in the back or something. Um, but to me, when you go up in the air, it's a totally different unsportsmanlike rule to when you're on the ground. So to me, don't think that's an unsportsmanlike foul. And actually, there was one in the first quarter where who was it? Johnson sort of they were trying to throw a lob to Thomas, and Johnson just sort of backed into him to
Yeah.
bump him,
Yeah.
called a foul. To me, that was the unsportsman foul that Chris Dodds called
Yeah.
last week. That wasn't. That was it. That was scored. Now I don't think it was an unsportsman, but Leicester didn't even get shots for that. They didn't even get free throws, and
But
to
you
me
can't get
that
free
was
throws.
more.
Well, it's
Well,
not a
if
shot
it's
attempt though.
well,
I saw the foul. I remember the foul you're talking about. But
yeah.
if the foul is when the ball's in the air, it's not a
Yeah, yeah,
shot.
yeah. No, my point is, that was the concept of that last week was called an unsportsmanlike foul, even though it wasn't. He hadn't got
Yeah.
off the ground. And when you compare the two,
Yeah.
I would say that's closer to, and I don't think either are unsportsmanlike, by the way.
No.
I'd say that's
Well.
closer to it than that's a deliberate attempt to
Yeah.
bump a guy in the air versus trying to block a shot from
Yeah. Well, the
behind.
sidebar of that is, I managed to catch a quick word with Ian McDonald before the game. I don't imagine
Mm,
I'm not to betray any confidences or anything like that. But Ian actually grabbed us because he was warming up just down the area where I couldn't stand, where I sit, and he was saying that they'd actually been that they were being encouraged. It was his two things he was saying which were really interesting. One is um, that they're encouraged to call a normal foul first and then consider whether to upgrade, which is
oh,
different
okay.
the way I put it last week, which was I
Yeah,
would
yeah,
call it and then think about it later.
yeah.
No, so and secondly, that they were being encouraged to, and that call at Glasgow was passed by an assessor as being the right call. So that's obviously what they're being told
Mm,
to do on the basis that the quote marks no play on the ball type of situation. I kind of raised with him, well, what about when someone bumps a cutter as they're going through the lane? And he says, well, yeah, as they're going down the baseline or something. He says, yeah, well, off-ball fouls are a bit difficult at the moment because technically that's the same principle. But he did say it wasn't because they thought the player was in the air, albeit obviously Chris did. So that was interesting. Yeah, I mean, both those calls you mentioned were both at the far end for me.
mm,
There's just I got no view on that at all to see them. I think if a foul to be an unsportsmanlike foul and something like that, I think there should be. It's not in the rules. I think there should be a degree of intent. The referee has to see a degree of intent
mm.
to do that because um, one person's attempting to take a charge is another person's undercutting.
Because
It's a very
The
difficult
EuroLeague
call,
game
isn't it?
I did on Thursday had a very similar sort of foul where somebody had come in from behind. It was probably more egregious than the one that was called against Allen, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
And it was a guy from behind sort of pushing, and because the referees are mic'd up or there's a mic on the table when they do a review, because they
Yeah, they
went to
say.
the table, there was a coach challenge. Is that an unsportsmanlike?
The
And they
normal
went
basketball
to
play.
the table and he said, it's normal basketball play, it's not excessive force.
Well, that's the point. Yeah, is it a normal basketball play? You know, and I mean, it didn't. I paid a little attention to the Allen thing because the game was over.
Yeah.
It's fifth foul anyway, so it didn't
Yeah.
really matter either way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I haven't watched the game back because you know I watched it live and that's over enough. So yeah, maybe it is a little. Maybe they've been encouraged to kind of be a little bit more.
Yeah, maybe.
Stuff on actions on the ball like that. But I do think we penalise people who challenge at the rim too much in this league anyway.
Yeah.
I think there's too much. I think there are too many 50-50 calls which go in favour of the offensive player, too many bailout calls, which don't reward shot blockers, you know, minimal contact in someone cleans the ball. And it gets
Speaking of
called.
which, we didn't, because we skipped through the Flyers going, a heck of a block in. I don't know if you saw the Quealy block in the.
Yeah, I saw it in the highlights. Yeah,
Incredible block.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, but you know that the presumption should be when someone's up there getting the ball, and that's it. And I think at times that we're overprotective of the offensive player, and we give them opportunities. Might be changing a little bit with Josh Sharma flying around blocking everything.
Yeah, maybe.
That might be the good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, but the interesting point of it was beyond that, beyond sports night stuff. You know, Teddy Allen dealing with a bit of adversity because he's going to find some in your professional career. You're going to get some.
Yeah.
And you know, how are they going to keep him on track that way, and make sure that doesn't kind of permeate the rest of it doesn't permeate the rest of the group, because it's never the question about the guy who's in his own head. It's about how the guy who's in his own head impacts everybody else, because they start getting in their own heads, and then you've got a problem. I'm not saying it's a problem. I don't think it is a problem at this point, but those green shoots of issues that I saw. But then again, they're in the final. They don't get it in the final now. They got 2 games this weekend, you know, and good for them.
Green, 28 points, half of them in the fourth quarter, 11 rebounds. Johnson, 18 points, 5 for 15. McGill, 15 points, 5 for 20. So that's 10 for 35 for them too.
McGill's playing 39.5 minutes. You know, and at the end of he's a guy who generally has the ball thrown to him, who's put up tough shots at the end of the shot clock. So he's a little bit impacted his numbers by that. But they're really still much better with McGill on the court than off him. Off the court.
5 rebounds, 6 assists as well for McGill. Shot 39% from the floor, Newcastle. Mackenzie, 22 points, 9 for 11, 6 rebounds, 8 assists. Adowu, 17 points, 3 blocks. Lawler and Allen both had 14. Leicester, by contrast, shot 57% from the floor, 14 of 29 from 3, and had 10 blocks.
Well, they can't give up 14 threes against Leicester. I mean, they shot the ball really well, but it was Mackenzie. No, Mackenzie. I had a brief word with Rob afterwards and said, look, he just looked like Bernardini. He had the Bernardini look in his eyes, which was, you know, we're getting to the final and we're going to try and beat these guys in the final. I've seen it.
Let's go to Saturday. Surrey Scorchers 63. Cheshire Phoenix 105. Jameson was back, but Gooden was still out. I saw you retracted your statement, Dave.
Yeah, I had to, didn't I? I'm sorry. I mean, this was brutal for Surrey. You know, this was arguably their biggest game in about 3 years. Their biggest game since they were in the semi-final of the All-Star Golden Buzzer Championships. Well, the final they reached even.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they won it.
I wasn't sure because we were already on the bus home by then. We'd already we didn't wait to watch the final. But I think we might watch. I think we had Sky TV on the bus, so we might have watched it. And you know, they just came out so flat. You know, Cheshire are what we know what Cheshire are. Again, Cheshire had that kind of Leicester look, which is, you know, this is a trophy, we've got unfinished business. We don't want to be playing. We really don't want to play a meaningful game against Sheffield tomorrow night. Type of look in their eyes. And
there was also the prize of whoever won this game didn't have to play London in the semi-final.
Well, yeah, but Surrey had to win this game to get to the final, didn't they?
Yeah.
To get in at all. And Cheshire knew that. Yeah, we avoid. But that as well for Cheshire. And you know what Cheshire are going to. We know what Cheshire are going to do. They're going to shoot threes. They're going to offensive rebound. They're going to play with a bit of swagger. They're going to come off the bench. The guys are going to come off the bench. They're going to shoot more threes. They're going to run harder, and you've got to match that. And it had the impression of almost the kind of the team thinking that the home venue and the crowd was going to help them. You've got to make players, and I don't know if Lawrence is hurt. Lawrence only played 9 minutes. Gooden's not playing. That again puts a lot onto Robinson. I think Jameson obviously back, but I think he's been back to America, family reasons. So you wonder how able he is to kind of be 100% focused on that game if there's stuff going on. And he missed a couple of early layups, and I'm like, at that top, but they didn't really have anybody else. He's come back to play, so good for him. And then you've got to be able to try and defend the 3-point line a little bit more than they did, and they just did not defend the 3-point line well, I'm afraid. I was a little bit surprised that Lloyd left it till 13-0 before he called a timeout.
Yeah.
I'd have probably had one at about 7 or 8-0 because, this is what that 5-minute timeout does with you. It plays with your brain as a coach. Because you're thinking I can get through to 5 minutes, make a couple of shots, get through to 5 minutes, and then talk about it. But he couldn't because it was 13-0. Didn't get the 7-0, and they were just hideously flat. And yes, unfortunately, they lost 2 games by a combination of 69 points over the week, and they were technically must-win games for qualification. I don't know really what to make of it, other than the fact that they're just key bodies down, and I count Jameson as being down in that game and not really being, not in a great position to perform at his best in this game. Being down, Gooden as well. But this is where your other guys, Wang, Mohammed, Josh Steele, etc. That's where these guys have to come and play 30 minutes. Cooper, put their hands up and make plays, and Cheshire a lot of things. They're not a fantastic defensive team. I think they played better defense in this game due to the focus that they've on the trophy and the need to win it. I think that concentrated their mind, but they're still not a great defensive team. And to allow them to hold you to 63 is in your home gym
in your own gym, yeah.
It's just
yeah. I mean, as you say, 13-0, that was basically it. They did get it to 4 late in the first quarter, but an 18-3 run took it out to 19-38. And actually, once it got to 20, it never came below 20 again. They never made it one.
No, and they just, I don't know. It was just it was the epitome of a je ne sais quoi. What is going on? I don't know why. Everything's going wrong. This isn't the way we play at home. This isn't the energy that we normally show at home. Why wouldn't it be there? Was it because the game was too big for them? Was it because for some of the guys? Was it because they were too focused on it and it just froze? I don't know. They're gonna have to work it out. Was it just because of a lack of numbers, because of mismatching with having to play those Parkinson played some minutes in the fourth quarter, having to play Bailey, Nakasimi, and those guys, or as I said before, the place fillers at this point in their career, that they can play in this league, but they're not necessarily going to win a quarterfinal for you. And then they didn't make that many threes as well. But then again, Cheshire were challenging the threes better because they were a little bit more locked into it, and they've got good length on the wings to challenge those threes. But 9 minutes out of Lawrence is a problem. 9 minutes, no points out of Lawrence. I mean, without Gooden, he becomes an absolute critical part of generating their offense. And if he's unable to produce, then I think it kind of makes a little bit more sense as to 2 + 2 making 4, as to why when he scored 63 points.
Robinson 15 points, 5 assists. Nobody else in double figures. Cheshire had 5 guys in double figures, led by Christian White and Shagwar, who all had 17. They were 17 of 38 from 3. They had 17 offensive rebounds. They turned into 24 second chance points, and they had 31 points off turnovers.
Yeah, and they were the 2 numbers that I was going to quote back at you, actually. 17 threes and 17 offensive rebounds. I mean, if you want to show, if Leicester want to see a way to lose against Cheshire, is to give up 17 threes and 17 offensive rebounds. Now, the threes, to a certain degree, they make or miss, but you'd let them get 38 up, and they're a 3-point shooting team. So in a kind of a knockout mentality game, you would expect them to be a little bit more, and particularly when they're short of size, you'd expect them to press up a little bit more and say, you got to beat us inside. the good thing about for Cheshire is they got a game out of Holden as well. Holden is the archetypal American rookie. He's either no points, 3 turnovers, 10 minutes, sit down, or he's got 25, 9, and 6, and he's by far the best player on the court, and he looks like he'll be playing the Euro League next week. You know, and they obviously started last week instead of Rideau. Rideau was back starting this week, but he's playing with Rideau a little bit this week. He made a couple of threes when they stayed off, which were scouting report threes, which you would live with if you're Surrey. But he has this kind of, and you can see that there's an interesting dynamic with him with all the other players, because you get the impression that he's fragile, but extremely talented. Because when a call went against him in the third quarter, and he ended up on the floor, and he's got a couple of guys are coming up to him, they're in his ear, they're talking to him. He's kind of standing there looking at the refs saying, I was fouled, and his teammates are talking to him, and they're trying to keep him on the right direction. So he's really he is the archetypal ceiling raiser for a team. You can be at a certain floor without him, but if he is playing at a certain level, because of the things he does with his rebounding, with his with his creation, and able to finish particularly going right, he raises the level of the team. So he might be your one to watch next week. I'm not telling you how to produce your TV shows, but he might be your one to watch next week. Because he may not. Rideau is going to be there. Jack's going to shoot threes. Aaron Ryan's going to do what he does. Charger's been great. But if you're telling me, if he has a good game, if Holden has a good game, Cheshire have every shot of winning. I mean, because his good games are very, very good.
Yeah. I'll pass it on to Azania.
Yeah.
So that result meant Cheshire were through, but also Caledonia were through. So the final game last night, Sheffield Sharks 77, Plymouth City Patriots 73, didn't mean anything other than the losing.
On that, you see, Caledonia are through on a points difference, aren't they?
Well, it could also be on the combined head-to-head. I think that's still possible.
Because at the moment, if Sheffield win tonight, if Sheffield don't win tonight, Caledonia are through because they're 2-2 and Surrey are 2-2, and therefore Caledonia beats Surrey. Yeah.
So if Cheshire, you're saying if Cheshire beats Sheffield?
Yeah, if Cheshire beats Sheffield, it's straight head-to-head, 2-2.
Yeah, it's 2-2 against.
However,
Dingy.
if Sheffield beat Cheshire tonight, then that would then be a 3-way tie.
Yeah.
Right, and the points difference with Surrey Sheffield, Surrey Caledonia, and Caledonia Sheffield comes into it. Is that right?
No, it's I'm just looking at it. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. I think it's the is it not the head-to-head? Let me just let me just have a look.
No, because Surrey beat Sheffield. Caledonia, it'd be 2-1-1. Got you. Yeah. So Caledonia have won both games.
Yeah.
So Caledonia beat the right teams, basically.
Yeah.
Basically, I got you.
Yeah. I was just trying to look at it, but that's what you've just said there. Sounds like.
I mean, I'm just thinking how ironic would it be if Johnny Bunyan's point had qualified? Though?
Yeah. No, Caledonia were 2-0. Surrey were 1-1, and Sheffield were 0-2. So that's why they finished in that order.
I was hoping Johnny's point would have got them home. Anyway, last night's game. I watched the last 7 minutes of it. I'm afraid, guys. I'm really. If you want your money back on this show, you can have it. I watched the last 7 minutes. It was 66-66, and basically no one made much of a shot for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, I was about to say, did Plymouth score in the time you were looking?
No, they came close.
So let me just do the other bit first, then, because obviously Malik Green is in for Sheffield and Cameron Copeland in for Plymouth. Terrell Green was hitting threes early on. Plymouth led by as many as 11. Malik Green looked all right, actually, and Sheffield got it back. And then I was thinking this game is going to go into triple overtime, isn't it? Because there's nothing riding on it, and it was so tight. But Sheffield actually scored the last 6 points of the game. Plymouth didn't score in the last 3.5 minutes.
Malik Green, interesting because he's more of a four-man from what I can see. 13-7 at college at Youngstown State. And the most interesting number for him was, new team, 14 shots in 17 minutes. So, and obviously 17 points, which is good. He'll take 17 points off 14 shots. But it suggests somebody who's come in, kind of been waiting for his chance to be a pro for the last 4 months, sitting on his hands, desperately saying, when I get a shot at this, I'm not going to go quietly. Now it's fine. that might be what Sheffield need. I didn't watch enough of the game to be fair to have an opinion as to whether it is or not, but he made 7 field goals, so you have to like that. Against that, he's playing against a Plymouth, he's playing a dead game, whereby the Plymouth, and against a Plymouth team, is, which isn't the best interior defensive team in the league. So the danger is that 7 of 14 in a dead game against a not great team becomes 3 of 13 against a good team who's defending you according to a scouting report. Now I don't know if that'll happen, but it's a little bit early to judge. But they've made a decision that they need some interior scoring, I think, outside of Bennett Cook, and I think that's probably a smart decision. So how he kind of filters in with the rest of them, we'll see over the next few weeks. Yeah, Plymouth, I mean, they thought they could have had a couple of calls down the stretch. They didn't get them. I think there was only one, I think, where Wiley was driving and maybe someone put their hands on him, whereby he could have had a call and didn't get one. Call for travel
He
instead.
seemed to get increasingly frustrated play after play with that, didn't he?
Yeah, and then they also made a couple of bad decisions in relation to their offensive output, and they were just waiting for, and Sheffield eventually, I think Pipkins made the shot, didn't he? Put the game away with half a minute to go. But we can analyze all. You don't analyze a dead game. I'm afraid the way you analyze a live game.
No.
So Newcastle Leicester gets 20 minutes and Sheffield Plymouth gets 4.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Green, 17, Malik Green, 17.7 rebounds. Ritino, 6 of 6 for 16 points. Cook, 11. Terrell Green, 23 points, 5 of 7 from 3. Wiley, 18 points and 7 rebounds. And Copeland, 13 points and 6 rebounds.
I like to look at Copeland. To be fair, again, I've talked about Green. Copeland looked like he looked quite in control from the 6 minutes I saw. Came off a screen, came off a curl, shot 15-foot. I looked in rhythm. Seemed to be defending diligently. I think he may well be an upgrade for them. He may well help them. Obviously, Faulkner didn't play in this game either.
So that is that in terms of the games that we've done. Obviously, Cheshire play Sheffield later. You can join myself and Jordan Taylor for that live on the British Basketball League YouTube channel. I might have a quiz. I might have a quiz for you, Dave. I might break out a quiz. It might be a quiz.
You're trying to lure me in now because I'm thinking you could also get a life. But oh man, now I might have to. Oh man, I don't know.
I need something random. I need something random that can
Cheshire, Sheffield.
Yeah, give people like you some food for thought. But
well, I mean, I'm trying. I think there's not much. There's quite a bit linked to Cheshire and Sheffield. Probably Todd Cawthorne the most.
Yeah, Todd Cawthorne's the obvious one. Too obvious that players from the two teams. I also want to give Jordan a chance of answering a question as well.
Well, he won't know anything before 2022.
So I just have to pick something that has multiple answers, don't I? Should we have a look forward to the semi-finals whilst we're here? Because we're a little short. So Cheshire versus Leicester in the first semi-final. I think it was in the second quarter yesterday. I tweeted, whatever the over/under is between Cheshire and Leicester, take the over.
Take the over, yeah. Well, the way they were playing, yeah. Except, I mean, I don't think there'll be a shortage of shots going up.
Yeah.
And what's really going to be interesting is how the Cheshire guys cope under the lights, and to a certain degree, how half the Leicester guys, I mean, most of the Leicester guys as well. Yeah. I mean, you're looking at, Aaron Rye and Teddy Allen, who are, probably the preeminently talented 3 men in the league at this point outside of London. So they're on the court in a big game. You've got the kind of Cheshire rookies who played fearlessly. You've got Skylar, who could be putting it up from anywhere and won't go down, and won't die quietly. And then you've got the Leicester guys and Mackenzie's focus, Alan's skill, and all those guys who are going to be going around. Will Thomas be there? Thomas, big key for them. And it may just come down to make or miss. It may just come down to who makes the most shots, and more importantly, who gets the most second chance shots off 3-point misses. Because generally, if you don't make the first 3-point, if you get the offensive rebound, you're going to make the second one. And that's where maybe Shelton might help Leicester, give them a little bit more oomph on the defensive glass, kind of in the second part of the first half, and in the second part of the fourth, and in the fourth quarter when legs are getting a little bit tired, they're going to need to get those cheap possessions. So he helps them. We don't know how Rideau is going to show on the big stage. I tend only 60-40, but I tend towards Leicester. I said that 3 weeks ago. I thought Leicester London would be the final. Because of Mackenzie. To a lesser degree, Connor, albeit Connor's not been playing that much, but even in the game on Friday night, he took a big charge against Jordan Johnson. That type of play makes a difference. Johnson's fourth foul kind of put the nail in the coffin, really. And that experience that they have with Kimball and Connor, I think, is probably the one thing that would tip them over the edge from a kind of betting with Dave perspective. But there's too many unknowns. The Cheshire team is just an absolute firecracker of a team. And with Rideau and with Hull and all those guys. Christian had 26 points in 22 minutes the other week. He'd come off the bench. He's a seventh man, That Stevens hasn't been seen for a while, but he could drop 4 corner threes. So who will manage the occasion best? And that's why in a 50-50 game, I'd go to Leicester, but I wouldn't put any money on it. DMA, no way.
And then London, Caledonia in the other one, presumably everybody's back. Probably not Decker, but everybody else is back for London, presumably, and at full strength.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the with Bothwell and Dubose back. It's probably the toughest of the 4 matchups for London, to be honest, because they've got Caledonia have legitimate size. They've got Moore come off the bench who can match up with Sharma. Nobody else has got anybody who can match up with Sharma coming off the bench in the whole league. They've got two shooters who can on their day go 9 of 12 from 3 and Whelan and Polizza. They've got size at the guard spot, so they can potentially be in the faces of the London guards. It's going to struggle to guard Matt Morgan, but everybody is. So and they've got a structure to their game in relation to throwing the ball in the faro, etc. early. So it isn't an absolute kind of roadkill situation, which probably it should be with London if they're absolutely focused on the game, because Caledonia are one of the better teams to compete with them. But for London to lose would be humiliation. London losing the semi-final would be humiliation.
Well, they've obviously got short preparation as well because of the Besiktas game.
They have.
But I agree with you. They've got to win.
Short preparation. That on the other hand, that's good rhythm. And at the end of the day, they're playing. They're playing in Birmingham. If the leagues manage to get the crowd there on the Saturday, that's 9,000 people. Those guys live for games like that. Nwab's been playing in front of 150 people in the G League. So he's now playing. So I've been watching those same games. And he's now playing in front of 9,000. And their big game experience. For all that things I've said about Caledonia. They go without saying in relation to Conor Morgan. They go without saying in relation to Gabe Olaseni. London should not lose a game this weekend. They should realistically win them both by 20. If it's the best against the best, if it's both best of both teams against the best of both teams, they should win by 20. But the balls, they got to throw the ball up. And who knows? And whilst it's not the paradigm position for to be coming into, we've had blowouts and finals before. So it's just because London have got a lot of money and they've got a fantastic team doesn't mean that it's the only time there's ever going to be a blowout. You can go back to basically any final Plymouth were in. Or there's three I can think of.
The worst of the which was in Birmingham, wasn't it?
In Birmingham against Everton, they got beat by 50. There was the one that Leicester blew us out in Wembley. Was it Wembley? O2, sorry, they blew us out of the O2.
Leicester had 3 playoff finals where they won by 20 every year.
In a row, because they were just at that point they were They were the team, you know, they were
But
rolling.
the also that Plymouth one in the trophy final.
That was awful. The game in Glasgow. Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
that was
it was
the
over after
great.
the first quarter.
Yeah, the Johnny White game. Yeah, that's
Johnny
what we call
White
that
game.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Well, if we get a few calls, we might win. But
yeah,
that was
yeah.
a pre-game. Yeah, but that Plymouth team was in the process of falling apart for
Combusting.
reasons.
Yeah.
And I think they got to the final by beating kind of combined, might have like the combined universities in Wales or something like
Yeah.
that. It wasn't the best advertisement for a trophy competition. Um, um, yeah, but it all counts on the chart. You know, I'd
Yeah,
want the
they
chart.
all.
You
Yeah.
know? So yeah, I think London should win.
Mm,
Without a shadow of doubt, London should win everything. As soon as they played that first game in the trophy and the way they played it, you know, if there'd been any market out there for them to win the treble, then that was it. You know,
mm,
they've already won the league.
mm.
Um, Impossible to see anybody beating them over 3 games in the playoffs. Maybe someone gets them in the final. You know, on a one-off miraculous situation.
Yeah.
But you know, they are. I mean, with the only thing that would give me thought about them being derailed would be if Gabe went down. If Gabe went down for the season, I'm not wishing for that, obviously,
Mm,
God knows. But if he went down for the season, the talent level would still be high, but he's their connector,
yeah.
and that would bring them closer to everybody else.
I just
But
wonder
with
whether
him,
you could just slide Connor Morgan over to there and
you do, but even then, that takes Conor Morgan away from being
yeah,
the 3-point shooter. It just takes everybody just a little bit out of their comfort zone. It knocks them down about 5 or 6 points a game, I think.
yeah.
It's not so that you can't survive it, and you find a different way of playing. Of course, you can. But you know, he has just been so good this year,
Mm, mm,
in facilitating for that team and being basically a point guard center,
yeah.
and a finisher. That he would be the only one I think that you would have any worries about. If we lost him, we'd struggle to replace him. Everybody else, because even with without Decker, they've gone. You know, they've had a switch.
Yeah.
You know,
So we shall see. We'll look forward to that after the quiz today, obviously, which I know you're excited about, Dave.
not wait now. Yeah,
So Dave and I will be back next week to review the trophy final and see if it all went as we've just discussed over the last 10 minutes. But for now, goodbye.